Welcome to Supernaut, where we explore the inner and outer dimensions of the self. Today we have on Dick Bjork. Dick is a husband, father, skilled carpenter, business owner, but his extraordinary skill was to not only have the grit, but the conviction to be an ultra-marathon runner. Now, with that same grit and conviction, he is facing something even harder, the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. Dick, I asked you if we could listen to a song together before we started.
Mm-hmm.
You picked To the Mountains by Lizzie McAlpine. Why did you pick this song?
I heard the song a little over a year ago. My son and I were getting ready to take a trip to the Bighorns in the Cloud Peak Wilderness, and I heard that song play, and it was so perfect. I picked it as like the theme of our trip, and I just really like it. I love the mountains, and so it was just fitting, and it really connected with me.
That line, I've got to do this on my own. It's like that's so much about being in the wilderness and running and a lot of what you are going through right now, I think.
There's so many things that you face, and ultimately you're by yourself. Even if you've got family around you, whatever, it still feels very internal, very much self-focused.
Yeah, we can have so many people around us, but if we're not okay on the inside,
Yeah. And
you have to take care of yourself.
I think there's certain things that nobody can heal for you. They can be supportive for you and stuff, but you really need to have inner strength, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't want to drag people down as well. The whole theme, I guess, of that song to me is just, it's a place of comfort and escape, perhaps, as well.
It was so beautiful. I would encourage everybody to find that song and listen to it if they haven't.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Thank you.
So let's get into the running first. So
Sure.
In high school, you're in track and you were just doing sprints, but then for school, you had to run the mile and you run
for gym class. Yeah.
And you run a 5-minute mile and you're like, hey, maybe this is kind of my thing. So you got obsessed with running after that. In college, you didn't really run, but after that, while you're starting a family, you're kind of running once a week, every once in a while.
Yeah.
Then you get to your 40s, and you decide to sign up for a 50K trail race. Not just a 50K, but
Originally,
a trail race.
I was going to do the 25K, and as I trained for it, I decided I was going to go all in and go for the longer distance just to make it interesting, and did it, and just loved it. And it was up at Lake Superior on the Superior Hiking Trail.
Yeah.
The race is, and it's just one of my favorite places in Minnesota is the North Shore. And all through high school, I used to go up there like every other weekend and camp and run, and it's just been a real connecting place for me.
Yeah, so if you're going to run a race, might as well be someplace that you love and the scenery is good, so...
Yeah, and then we make it a family thing where the kids came up, and the Caribou Highlands Lodge is the finish line for the race. So you start down the trail, and then you run to Caribou Highlands, and your family can stay there, and you're at the destination, so it's kind of a destination event, and it's been a really positive thing for our family to go up and enjoy the races and enjoy the North Shore. And
so how many did you do until you were ready to do a 100-miler?
I did a number of trail marathons up there. I did 10 50Ks, and I did 5 50 miles on the trail before I decided to bite off 100. It's actually 103, which people laugh, the 3, but it makes a difference because when you're at 100, the thought that you've still got 3 left is daunting. And the last several miles of the race are all very hilly. The whole thing is super hilly. There's incredible like 24,000 feet of vertical gain in the 100 mile. So it's pretty intense.
What do you get out of an ultra that you don't get out of a 5K?
I think it's the build-up, the training, and the anticipation is huge. And I love to train, and so I love to have an event that warrants the training. And 5Ks, most of the 5Ks races, and certainly you can pick and choose because there's a lot to choose from, but that's like the race distance that I ran in cross country in high school. And so it's like a sprint, and I don't train for that. I hadn't trained for speed and found that I was better at long duration events and was much more competitive the farther it got. I think honestly the 50 miles was my best distance. I was the most competitive at 50 miles, and the harder the trail, the better. So Superior Hiking Trail is very technical with lots of roots and rocks, and so it's interesting. I ran a couple of the races where you'd run with people who had never run on the course before, and you were running alongside them, and they're like looking at their watch saying, gosh, I'm just running so much slower than I normally do. And I'll tell them, it's like, if we continue at this pace, you'll be like in the top 5 in the race. And they're blown away. But it's one of those things, you just can't go as fast on the terrain.
Well, you have to be so conscious of your footwork. I know when
Yes.
I've ran in trails, you can't just turn your brain off and run. You have to be thinking about your feet.
Yes. And you have to lift your feet up really high, and the ability to feel your way along the trail is your proprioception, it's called, where you feel the terrain and you adjust to it. And that's one of the things that's been affected by Parkinson's is my balance. And it was one of the first things I noticed was that when I'd put a foot down, it felt like I wasn't prepared for the terrain change, like small little dips and divots and stuff like that. I was starting to notice that I didn't have it, and I used to have incredible ability to run trails and rough, rocky stuff. It's amazing when you watch somebody that's good do it. You can't imagine how they can go that fast over that terrain, and it's just kind of a dance. So where were we?
Well, did you do any 100-milers that were not trail races?
I didn't. I did.
Okay.
I did Superior twice, and the second time was kind of to validate that I could do it. It wasn't a fluke. And I so 2016 I ran the first one and completed it within the cutoffs. And then the following year, a good running friend of mine was going to do the 100 for the first time. And so I paced him, which is running alongside with somebody for a designated section. So you might run for 15 or 20 miles and then switch off. After 50 miles in the 100 race, you can have a pacer, they're called, but they're really just kind of a support person. And it's super nice. They can take the lead in the trail for you. They remind you to eat and do all that stuff, and it's just such a remote course. You're largely by yourself the whole time because you're stretched out over 100 miles of trail, and people's times are also different when they stop, and how long they stop at aid stations dictates where you are in the course. But
what does your brain do during that time? Are you obsessively thinking, or does it shut off?
One of the good things and the bad things you're talking about, the terrain and the footing, you end up having to look down a lot at your feet. So it's amazing how much stuff you can miss, and it's more being immersed in the environment. And that's where I haven't done like a road 100-miler, and that would be incredibly difficult to me, I think, just because your mind is occupied when you're running a technical trail.
With the nature?
Yes, you have to, with the nature and with the terrain, what you're going over varies so much that it takes your mind off of yourself to a certain degree.
Always have a connection to nature? I mean, maybe that's a prerequisite for runners, like, because they can think about the nature instead of the fact that they're running so hard.
Yeah, I had run road marathons and stuff before, and it just didn't have the allure of running in the mountains or running on the trails. And as a kid, we had a big area around our house that used to be a county park, and there were hard dirt trails for miles in this area, and there was nobody on them. And so as a kid, I would run those trails and just had a blast doing that. And it carried over into once I started running in high school and going up to the North Shore all the time. It just fit. And it's fun to go to a different area and not have it be so scripted, I guess. And you're talking about the footing, you don't even have to lift your feet up. I ran a lot on a treadmill recently, and it's amazing. You get into the habit of lifting your feet like a quarter of an inch above the revolving deck. And that's so bad for trail running because you're not picking your feet up anymore, and it's not this perfect surface. But I give a lot of credit to the people who are able to run. There are some races that are distanced by time, so they might be a 12-hour race or a 24-hour race. And the point is to run as many miles in that time period, that time slot as you can. And a lot of times they're done on a track or a neighborhood loop of like a mile to 2 miles. And to have the mental toughness to do that is a whole nother discipline, really. Because that's so hard on the mind to grind away. And it's amazing what you can do.
Yeah, that mental toughness, because I want to run, but to get myself to actually do it, where do you think that comes from for you?
I think I've found over the years there were a lot of times I didn't want to run. The weather was bad or whatever, and I've predominantly run outside. I did a science, I'm trying to think of the words for it now, but it's called Sparks. It was a Parkinson's program, a test, a study, exercise study, I should say. And they had you run on the treadmill. And so I did that a lot more. But I think once you get out the door, making yourself get out the door is the hardest part. And once you accomplish that, you're kind of all in. Because, I find if I'm 100 yards out and I'm thinking this is going to be horrible, I've learned over the years to give myself like 2 to 4 miles of running before I pull the plug on a run. And inevitably, 99% of the time, by the time I've got the 2-3 miles under my belt, I'm good to go. And then the run gets better and better. And I always feel so good when I'm done that it just self-quantifies the need to press on. And I will say I'm struggling now to have that motivation to get out the door. And I relate a lot of it to Parkinson's, but it's probably just getting older and lazier too.
Yeah, for me, if I just say I'm going to walk, but in the back of my head, I want to run, if I just tell myself I want to walk, I'll always end up running and wanting to and feeling great about it.
Sure. And it's a good way to start out running too, is to walk a bit, run a bit. And I think that's the best way to start even a running program is walk for a while, run for a short distance, maybe 30 seconds or a minute, or adjust it, or just do it by feel. A lot of times if I'm running a hard run with a lot of contour to it, I'll run like all the downhills and the flats, and I'll hike the uphills. And I find myself setting up a waypoint. So I'll see a tree up there and I'm going to say, I'm going to run this hill at least to that tree. And then when I get to that tree, it's like, I can go to the next feature and continue it on. And so it's just a mind game. It's a mind game. But I think the rewards that I get when I get back and I feel so much better, a lot of the tension of the day and everything is gone. It validates my effort and reminds me when I don't want to go that, I should go.
What did running that far teach you about your body and your spirit that you lean on today?
I've always been impressed with what your body's capable of doing. I think it's capable of so much more than most people let on, and I'm amazed when I go to these different long races. The people that you see, you'd never expect them to say, "I've run 100 miles," and so there's a lot of body types. There's a lot of different mental perspectives that do it, but I'm totally blown away by what you can do if you want to do it, and so it's there. The effort is now is to try and apply that tenacity with everyday life and with dealing with like Parkinson's. But it's amazing how the mental aspects of that, the depression and apathy that come with Parkinson's, one day I'll have this great idea and I'll be motivated to do it. And an hour later, it's like completely squashed. And you wonder where you even got the notion to do it. So I'm finding I've got a new foe in the procrastination thing. And I'm kind of a procrastinator to begin with. So if I don't really want to do something, I find a lot of ways to not do it. And it's something I've struggled with, and I think a lot of people struggle with. It's pretty common. But I never really had to with running. Yeah.
Maybe it was some type of escape. Do you know what you were trying to escape from? Maybe other duties that you were trying to procrastinate?
I think it does lighten stress loads.
Yeah.
A lot. And
well, the chemicals it produces in your brain alone, let alone knowing like I accomplished this thing that most other people don't even set out to do.
Right.
Not in an arrogant way, but
exactly.
Internal.
It's a very personal thing to me. I'm not caring what other people are thinking, whether I did it or not. It's just, it was a personal goal. It was a bucket list thing. Mm-hmm. And I found I really enjoyed it. And I found over the years that I need a purpose for training, for running. Mm. It really helps to have a goal race where you've got to put in the work because the clock's ticking on how many days you've got to it. Mm-hmm. And so there's that incentive to get out there and do it so that it's not a total sufferfest.
Yeah.
When you toe the line.
Yeah, definitely. What do you do with the pain that you feel out there? When you're running 100 miles, it's inevitable that you're going to be in some kind of pain. Does it eventually go away for you? Because I've heard for some people it does not, and they suffer through the pain the entire race.
I'm sure I haven't run into situations in my races where I was in terrific pain, but it was a thing that I monitored. It was kind of I only said that I would drop out of a race if I was doing something physically harmful to my body, that it was going to do damage. And I mean, I'm not talking about damage where I'm going to have muscle soreness and stuff. That's inevitable. But, there's so many different things that can go wrong. And a lot of it's problem solving out there.
Does your brain ever trick you, though? Try and trick you? Like, this is bad enough that you should stop? Or you don't even let those thoughts come in?
You think it, but prior to the race, prior to the 100-milers, I set myself up with the notion that I would only quit if I was doing damage. There was no excuse to drop.
Maybe that's runners' superpowers. They're able to know which thoughts aren't real, which thoughts they can throw away.
Yeah, I think you do get to know your body incredibly well, and if there's something you're really questioning, obviously you should stop. Mm. But I think we become pretty aware of what's dangerous.
Yeah.
Pain.
Yeah.
Because you're always going to have, I've lost toenails, end up with black toenails, and they drop off. And foot problems are probably the most common thing, but you do end up dealing with it, and it's a struggle sometimes. Mm-hmm. But it's part of the journey, mm-hmm. I guess, of that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite experience out there running an ultra? A favorite memory?
almost all of them are really positive. Um, so I guess there's not a specific one. No. Um, I've enjoyed aspects of all of the races, and there's none that I wouldn't do again.
Good. So you got diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2023.
Yep.
Not too long ago. Did you have suspicions?
There were some things that were happening that I couldn't attribute to anything, and Parkinson's was not on my radar at all.
Don't you have a brother-in-law?
I have a brother-in-law that was diagnosed 15 years ago, and so I'm aware of it. But there were some small things, not being able to roll over in bed, coordination of muscle groups. It's amazing what you would never think that rolling over in bed would be something that would be affected. But our bodies go through so many orchestras of movement, and you don't have to think about it. It's automatic. And Parkinson's affects that ability of things to work synchronized. And so rolling over in bed, I ended up having to teach myself with my legs how to roll over. And so that was weird. There was one day I woke up prior to that and I couldn't move in bed. It's like my arms were frozen, and I thought it was from a shoulder injury. I had fallen twice on the ice on the same shoulder and torn a bunch of ligaments in it. And I thought it was my body being protective, because a lot of times when you do damage to a joint or something like that, the muscles won't fire because they're protecting the joint. They think it's going to damage the joint.
And your body's compensating and
yes.
doing all
So I
sorts
thought
of
maybe
things.
it was shutting off because of my shoulder. And so I attributed a lot of it to the falls for a while, the things I was noticing. And then I started having a lot of problems with my voice, with vocal expression, with raspiness, and it would just be soft and it would not go away. And I went and saw an eye, nose, and throat doctor, and he treated me for several different nasal allergies and stuff to try and rule things out. They looked functionally, nothing looked up. And he said to me after I went back for a follow-up, he goes, I think you might have Parkinson's. He's like, I'm gonna set you up with a neurologist. And I was completely blown away. To him, it was just matter of fact. I think you have Parkinson's. And I certainly knew what that was, but I had never really entertained it seriously. And then, as it turns out, too, a number of people that I knew pretty well but hadn't seen in a while started making comments to, like, my business partner at the time when we were working, that, gee, what's wrong with Dick? He doesn't seem like himself. And I was kind of getting defensive. I was like, what are they talking about? Because I didn't see it. And there's so much facial expression and things like that that get affected. So there were some things. The voice was a big thing. And then when I started to get feedback from multiple people, and there was one guy, we went out to eat and we bumped into this table, and Larry was the guy's name. And Larry later told my friend Ed, who I was with, does Dick have Parkinson's? And that's the first somebody said it. And
you heard this story before or after the official diagnosis?
Before. It was in the couple months waiting for the neurology appointment.
Oh, it took a couple months.
Yeah, so I started having all these ideas, and the more I read then, I started reading about Parkinson's, and I was totally bummed that I had not done this for my brother-in-law, that I had neglected digging in to see some of the things he was experiencing and to understand it better. I just took it for granted. It's like, yep, my brother-in-law's got Parkinson's and he deals with it, and I don't see him daily or even monthly. And so everybody goes along, and he is one of the most stoic people, does not complain, and has dealt with a lot over the years. And so then we had an appointment. It was January 4th of 2023, which is my daughter's birthday, which I thought was ironic and kind of dark. But went in and met with a neurologist, and at the culmination of the examination, she said I had Parkinson's. And it's not a definite diagnosis at that point because it's based on a variety of muscle rigidity, all different kinds of factors that they gauge reaction. I didn't have tremor at all, which was one of the things that's most commonly people are diagnosed. They start with a tremor. They have a thumb or a finger that starts to tremor. I didn't have any of those, but I had the other things, the throat and swallowing issues. It affects your ability to swallow as well. So I was surprised to get the actual diagnosis, but I wasn't that surprised because a lot of things that I had read, I had some of those symptoms. And loss of sense of smell, probably for 20 years ago, that started where I was losing my sense of smell. And that's a common sign of Parkinson's, is loss of sense of smell. And it's amazing with that, how your body, when you eat blueberries or something like that, and you get a whiff of the scent of the blueberries, you know you're eating blueberries. But what's funny is I think when you see you're eating like strawberry jam on toast or whatever, you have an expectation of what that will taste like. You kind of know what it is. And so I think I was not really registering that I'm actually not smelling these things. I'm just mentally telling myself I'm smelling toast with jam or whatever. And so it's deceptive. It's sneaky.
So that exact moment finding out from the doctor, what did that feel like in your body?
In some ways, I was at peace because I knew what was going on. There were a lot of things with when I would get super stressed, my voice would disappear and things like that. And so all these weird symptoms that I was having, I couldn't figure it out. And then it made sense. The puzzle piece was put in place as to what was going on. And there was a lot of self-pity, I think, at that time. I kind of felt like a turtle pulling into my shell, just like hunkering down, battening down the hatches for what you're going to face and not wanting to face it. It was and it's still, I go, if I'm lucky if I go 30 minutes to an hour without thinking about Parkinson's. That's probably the most frustrating thing, is that you can't, it's hard to make it disappear even for a while.
It's overtaking your body and your mind in that way also. Like, it has your body, but your mind, when you're thinking about it that much.
It's amazing how it affects your brain, and dopamine has so many, it's a neuromodulator, and so it controls other neurotransmitters. So there's lots of things with behavior, with mood and motivation. It's much more complicated than one signal. So when you get replacement dopamine, levodopa, which is the precursor chemical for dopamine production in your brain, so you take the medication, you get dopamine, but it doesn't mean that everything is balanced with these other things that dopamine works with, and the transmission of the signals. So a lot of people think it's only a movement disorder and that you're fine other than that, but there's so many things that mentally it affects as well. Of course, just the diagnosis makes you be affected, but it's actually chemically not supporting appropriate behavior or thoughts.
Right. So with your brother-in-law, did it feel more like compassion or guilt?
I think some of both. I appreciated what he'd gone through, and that's one of the hard things about Parkinson's, is that it is so individualized. Every person's experience is different. The symptoms that they feel, the way it affects their body, it's completely random. And there's like 40 or 50 different side effects of Parkinson's, symptoms of Parkinson's. So there's just this plethora of things, and the more you read, the more you can connect the dots. But ultimately, it's what you're dealing with. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is there a misconception about Parkinson's that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think it's the movement disorder. They think of Michael J. Fox as the thing that comes to most people's mind when you talk Parkinson's. And he's kind of a special case. He was an early onset, young onset, at 29, and he's like 67 now and still dealing with it. And you see the issues he has with movement, and it's scary. Mm-hmm. It's scary for sure. But I think a lot of people think if you're functioning fine, largely daily, that you're not too bad. You don't have it too bad. But there's a lot of things that are behind the scenes that affect the individual, that are not obvious. But the good part is that the progression is typically very slow over decades. It can be. And most of the issues in terms of mortality are byproducts of it. So the throat thing, if you inhale a lot of liquids, a lot of people die from aspirational pneumonia, is a real common thing. Another one is falling, because it's the balance issues. And we know with any older people, falls are super dangerous with sliding down that slippery slope of not healing, breaking hips. And at some point it gets bad enough where you die of complications. But I'm pretty optimistic in that I've been active. And so a lot of people that get it are older. So if you're 75 or 80, yes, you have a much smaller window of time you're going to deal with it. But chances are you're not going to have the physical ability to overcome a lot of the symptoms. And so getting it at the age that I got it, which is very typical, 60 to 65 is super common. I was 59 and a half at the time. I think I'm better able to ward off the progression. And that's the biggest thing. There are three things. There are exercise is the number one thing, and diet is the second, and sleep is the third. Most important things to minimizing progression and severity of symptoms. And so now the running has become a necessity, and to do it as long as I can. And then I'll have to find something else, and there certainly will be other things that I'll engage in those, be it biking. Surprisingly, a lot of people with Parkinson's, there's people that can't walk, but they can ride a bike. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it presents problems when you come to stop, but...
Yeah. So it's a blessing that you were so into running, but now does it feel like this chore that you have to do it, where before it was like you wanted to and you couldn't get enough of it?
Somewhat, but I think also it's having goals in the past where I needed to train for a purpose. Mm-hmm. Now I need to train for a different purpose. And if I can enjoy what I'm doing and do something productive for the Parkinson's, that's a win-win. So really it's just doubling down on the fact that I need to do this. I have to do this. And it's dependent not just on me, but on my caregivers eventually. To delay that as long as possible is important to me. I don't want to be a burden physically. And I know eventually I will. But in the meantime, I want to do all I can do to maintain my independence and complete solidarity of taking care of myself.
If you had to name one thing as the hardest part, can you think of what that is?
I think I'd never really dealt with apathy before, and it's rolled in with depression, but I'm really lucky in that, I'll have my moments, but they're fleeting for the most part. They don't endure, and I don't get these 2-day things or whatever. I was always a pretty optimistic person, and I think a lot of that's been damaged, but I think I can rebound, and I'm starting to get into a better place mentally, where you finally grasp the fact that this is what I've got. This is what I've got to deal with, and the other thing is it can always be so much worse. There's so many other things out there that are horrible, and so it makes me focus in on the fragility of all of our situations. I mean, any one of us could get it. There's 90,000 people a year in the U.S. that are diagnosed with Parkinson's. There's over 1 million people living with it. So I'm not alone. And you can pick your how many older couples do you know that have gone and retired, and then all of a sudden somebody gets sick and it changes everything.
You had told me one time that you prided yourself on your voice your whole life. Is that accurate?
I didn't really pride myself in it, but I enjoyed my voice. I've sung at a couple of weddings. I was in a barbershop quartet, in high school that did really well. We got 4 stars at the state meet, if you will, for that. And I just love to sing when I drive. And it's something I miss because I can't do it now for a squat. And so I'm self-critical, and you just don't enjoy it if it's not what you're expecting to hear. And so I really miss being able to sing. That's a big one. It's just a simple thing.
But that's a big shift in identity. Is there anything else that this disease has made your identity shift from?
Certainly my background was a lot of hands-on stuff with the cabinet making and all that. And so being super handy and physical, I always thought there was nothing I couldn't build or make. And so it's weird at home now with my wife, just different things that I can't do or I struggle to do. And I think she gets a little frustrated and wants to jump in and do them. And it's frustrating. You don't want that to happen. And it's a little bit, it just kind of knocks you down a step or two. But I understand it. But it's hard. I think being a guy too, just being able to do things physically. Parkinson's does not make you weaker, but a lot of times you have trouble gauging force. So I'll go to tighten something, and what I think is tight is not tight. And so gauging force is difficult. And there's so many things with grabbing a screw out of a nail pouch and manipulating the screw so that you can run it in with a screw gun. Most of the time, if my meds are on par, I can do it. And it's dramatic, the difference when I start to go off meds. So like in the day, I take meds 4 times a day. And the last time is at 3:30, and it starts to wear off like 4 hours later. And the shift in symptoms is dramatic. It's amazing what the levodopa does. And you can be on it for decades. But but yeah, so your ability to do things shifts for sure, and that's hard to reckon. I think for some people more than others. I understand it, so I don't beat myself up over it. I still try and do everything, um, and I'll keep trying to do it as long as I can do it. And I know the more things I do, the more things I manipulate, the more things that I measure and just be involved in is therapeutic because I'm moving using all different kinds of muscles and stuff. And one of the harder things probably is socially. It affects your ability. I don't like large group gatherings too much anymore, and it's just there. I used to be fairly outgoing, and just it chips away. It's death from 1,000 cuts to your personality, and that gets really frustrating. But at times when I'm maybe overtired or stressed, you feel like the old you is disappearing, being replaced with something. And I noticed that with older people, that as if they have difficulty hearing and stuff like that, they withdraw, and because they're not being able to be included in what's going on. And so there's some good lessons to take from that as well. That keeping people involved, keeping you involved, doing things you don't want to do. Like I didn't really want to do this. I thought it would be difficult, and it's personal, but it is therapeutic too to talk about it and let other people understand or what my experience is.
What do you miss the most? If you could get back one thing that Parkinson's has stole from you, what would that be? What should we appreciate more?
I think just general confidence in myself. You kind of feel like you're coming across not how you want to come across, and so the ability to be who you were, not have this kind of. I used to make the statement all the time, well, the old me could do this, or and one of my good friends tells me to just stop talking like that, because but you do gauge yourself against what you were. I think it's human nature to gauge yourself, who you were, what level you were at. But the other thing that I think I've really learned is humility, how unimportant my ego is in many respects. I've got so many more fish to fry than to worry about what my ego thinks. Yeah. And so there's been some good perspective too in just not worrying about the superficial things and things that are in the big picture are not important at all, and that if I could change, that would be the last thing I would worry about.
If you had to describe your life now in one word, what would it be?
Well, I had 2 words written down, but they were at a certain point in the day. Distracted would be one, and the other was fragile.
Your mental body is fragile, or your physical?
I feel like both are, and I've never. Feeling fragile is not anything I ever wanted to feel, and so having taken care of my body my whole life, being athletic and making sure I was never a drinker early. I've never used or abused drugs, and just been careful. It's one of those things, like when I first started driving, I was so careful to drive smartly because I didn't want to lose the ability of the freedom of driving. And I feel the same way with my health. It's just your life is so much better and so much easier if you're healthy. And you can go from everything being wonderful in a relationship and a family to devastation with people getting some chronic illness. And then you've got the care factor, and I don't want to have to be taken care of.
Is that your biggest fear?
It's probably my biggest fear, yeah, is what's coming down the road for my family, for my wife and stuff, having to deal with taking care of me. And we both had parental parents that have needed help in taking care of, and there's a real attrition to taking care of somebody for a long period of time and having that obligation. And so I'd really like to not have to have that happen anytime soon.
Are you mad at God then because you've spent your whole life being careful and taking care of yourself?
I definitely feel betrayed. Yeah. But then I remember that we aren't guaranteed that everything's going to work out great. And so there's definitely a lot of anger. But again, it isn't something that I could have changed. It's idiopathic Parkinson, so there's no known cause. It isn't a genetic thing. It wasn't an environmental toxin thing, likely, although I was exposed to different chemicals in the cabinet shop for decades.
So then do they say what likely caused it, or they literally have no idea?
They don't. They just leave it unclassified.
That's got to be tough. Like, you just want answers.
I do, but at the same time, it wouldn't change anything now. I can't go back.
Where do you find peace on the hard days?
I think just my routine with my family, making a meal, enjoying sitting down together, enjoying a meal. I certainly do enjoy when I get out. On the weekends, I always go to the park, Interstate Park in Wisconsin, and run the trails. So it's right just near Taylor's Falls there. I absolutely love running. I've got several different courses all through the trails in there. And that just lifts me up and really enjoy that.
Yeah. Do you believe suffering has a purpose? You already said humility is something that you've learned. Anything else?
I think suffering has a purpose. I hope it has a purpose because there's so much of it going on around everywhere. I'd like to think that we're not just suffering for no reason. I think there's a real benefit in learning empathy for other people. Having dealt with it yourself, if they're in the same group, you can kind of share that. And I think it's good I think a lot of people think too much about themselves always. And it's hard when you're dealing with something on your own. But it's like the 100 motto. Something can always else go bad, you know. Things can go sour in a hurry.
Who or what has surprised you with being supportive?
I think gladly no one has been a standout, but I think just in general, my family and friend structure has been there with me. So I can't say that I've been lacking in anything. Yeah, I think people for the most part have responded really positively, and they don't dwell on it, and I'm glad because I don't want to dwell on it. I think about it enough. I don't need to be reminded of it. And those moments where you're not thinking about it and you're free from it for a while is really precious. And so I'm hoping as time goes by, I'll get used to the fact that I do have it and that I can't change anything about it. But what I can do, I'm going to do.
So when you do run into somebody that you haven't seen for a long time, what is the appropriate response? I think people never know, are we supposed to bring it up? Like, I would think, no, I'm not going to bring it up because why remind you of it?
Yeah.
Why, or, if somebody sees you and you're acting different than you have before, like, is there anything, do you wish they would ignore it? Do you wish they would ask you what's going on?
I mean, I guess if they're curious, I'd want them to ask,
Mm-hmm.
but I try and let people know. If it's somebody I haven't seen, some
Mm-hmm.
friends I haven't seen for quite a while, I'll bring it up and just get it out there on the table. Not because I want them to treat me any different, but I just don't want them to wonder, gosh, what the heck's going on? Because so much of your normal, I mean, when you see somebody like my brother-in-law, they lose so much facial expression. It's like they call it cement face, where you just don't respond at a certain point.
So you want people to know,
Yeah,
I'm enjoying this conversation, even if I don't look as enthusiastic as I
exactly.
maybe did in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, so many things change. I mean, my smile changed, my expressions changed. It feels very foreign, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's a very annoying. I feel like systemically I've aged 5 or 6 years for every year, which I was hoping to be the 60-year-old that's the new 50.
Well, your skin does look so great still. It's like you get Botox, but I don't think you do. You have no wrinkles.
No, I've had some sun damage that I've had frozen recently, so
okay.
that's why I've got some
well, it
spots.
looks great.
But I get in trouble because I don't use sunscreen enough. Should.
Yeah, but there's controversy around that too now. Is that what's
some of
always
the
caused us
chemicals.
cancer? Because you're putting literal chemicals on your skin,
Right.
and people never needed that before when
Right.
they lived in the.
Tanning is protective, supposedly, but
Yeah.
it's crazy. That's like a whole nother show.
Yeah, right. What advice would you give someone newly diagnosed with Parkinson's or another chronic illness?
I guess I can't speak for another chronic illness because they'd be so different, probably. But with Parkinson's, I think it's take a deep breath and assume the best and do what you can do immediately in terms of the big three: the exercise, the diet, and the sleep. It is critical. I notice at the end of a day, as 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock comes along, I just fade. And you need more sleep than you used to get. So, I mean, they recommend 8 hours, and it certainly makes a big difference. So I think taking care of your body right away and having a good group. I've got an incredible neurologist. She's just fantastic. I'll go in there and have a 30-minute appointment, supposedly, and we'll spend an hour and 5 minutes. She never once looks at the clock. So having a great neurologist, I think, is really important. And I usually come away from those visits feeling super great, all things considered. So
That's magical.
yeah, people can really make a big difference. But at the end of the day, you've got your life to live, and theoretically with a progressive disease, it's only going to get harder. So do as many things as you can now. And that's hard for me to get off my procrastinating butt sometimes and realize that, 2 years from now, I might not be able to do this type of vacation. Like, I really want to get out to Colorado and the San Juans and run and hike. I'll be definitely hiking there because of the altitude, but there's just some different mountainous spots, and I'd love to do the Alps hiking hut to hut and stuff. So there's a lot of things to do and to plan and take advantage of them because it's not going to wait for you.
When people remember this part of your life, what do you hope that they'll say about how you faced it?
I just hope they I guess it would be more so for my family and stuff. I wish I would hope that they think I was brave with it and that I did the best I could. And it makes me cherish them more. But but I'm not so concerned about what other people think, really, other than the people that are my family and friends. The rest of the world be damned,
Yeah.
I've got it. I'm going to deal with it. I'm not affecting you. So deal with it. Yeah.
If Parkinson's could talk, what would it say to you?
I'm coming. And I would say, send it.
What's something Parkinson's has forced you to slow down and notice that you might have rushed through before?
I think the fact that I need to do things in the now rather than I was always, well, if we don't get it this time or this year, we'll do it next year. Was really good at delaying and putting things off. And so I think the urgency to do stuff now while I'm the most capable and I've got the most, the least need for help in spending time with family and friends. Yeah.
What's something that you do now that you hope your grandkids do when they're your age?
I think camp and hike and get to these beautiful places.
Yeah.
I find, places like Glacier and even the Bighorns where Eric and I were last year are so beautiful and they're so soothing and there's so much to do and just absorb. So, yeah, I would hope the urgency to do things.
What do you do right now that you hope your grandkids don't do when they're your age?
Maybe getting caught up in, I see so many negative things with the phones and social media and stuff like that. And I really hope they keep that in check. I know my kids are on their phones a lot. They're not kids anymore, they're adults. But that's the amount of time that gets wasted is mind-boggling. And I get sucked into it too. And I've really tried to not get into that realm where you're constantly looking at stuff and you get so many negative perspectives on things. I just think we were, as kids, were blessed with the innocence of not having all this information all the time and all these stereotypes of what you should be or how you should be. And I think it makes you a lot more vain than never having exposure to all these things and worrying that somebody's going to see you or you've got to keep up with the Joneses with clothes and cars and stuff like that. So I think that would be what I would say.
Veda, do you have any questions?
I was curious at the beginning of the episode if you've ever dealt with any serious running injuries.
I had an injury that was not running related. I was doing like karate kicks with my son in the leg that was planted and not in the air. The knee joint, the patella dislocated and it went sideways.
Oh no.
And that was the worst pain I've ever been in. But I've been super lucky with running and I've had some minor injuries, but my legs are pretty bomb-proof, and so much of that is your form and everything and genetic. Some people seem to have all kinds of problems running, and I think one of the big factors is that I started young, and I've always kept running to some degree. And it's funny because I know there was that 5K that some of the people did, and my daughter did, and was saying how even just fast walking the 3 miles had sore feet and sore ankles. And so I think there's a lot of resiliency and toughness that comes from using those muscles all the time and building a solid foundation. But there seems to be not a lot of rhyme or reason to injuries sometimes, but most of the people that it's not true that you wear out, like your knees, you're wearing them out if you use them a lot. Some people go through their knee cartilage and have to have a knee replacement, and they've been fairly sedentary their whole life. So if it isn't being overweight being the issue, a lot of it's just genetic. But no, I've been lucky, and I knock on wood, I can go and grind along and feel good. Not had too many injuries.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, very beautiful. Dick, thank you for sharing everything. Is there anything that we didn't go over that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think we got it a lot. This is the most talking I've done in the morning for a while.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
Good.
It was good.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on.
You bet.